This is going to be a bit of a different video. I had a comment below in one of my other videos that one of the guys thought that I should do what knives I picked up. I think if I remember it correctly, which knives I purchased in 2017, and I should, you know, kind of lay them out in front of the camera. Well, I was kind of partially being a little bit funny and partially not. I don't know that I could remember all the knives I bought in 2017. I'm sure I could if I just, you know, went through a list, but I don't know if you can tell, but I'm not huge on sketching out the entire video that I'm going to do. So I didn't do that. Instead, what I did was I picked all the knives that came to my mind when I looked through my collection very quickly, which knives I got this year. So these aren't necessarily 2017 releases, but these are all the knives that I picked up this year that stood out to me. And it just so happens that there are 5 traditionals and there are 5 moderns. So I'll get started with the moderns. This knife right here, I'm sure you've seen it. You've seen it a lot. I plan on doing a follow-up video to it. It is an S30V Benchmade Bugout. I don't know. There seems to be a lot of back and forth whenever I talk about this on my Instagram page. I'm going to do a follow-up video. This is one of the standout knives for me this year. When I came into 2017, I had 2 main goals, and that was to, 1, pick up a Benchmade because I wanted to experience some brands that I had not personally owned before. I have bought my father a Benchmade. I started the year off, well, let's put it this way. By February, I had already bought a Benchmade 940-1, and my other goal was to get a Microtech. I had already bought a Microtech at that point too. So this would be the first standout knife of the year for me, would be my Benchmade Bugout, even though I didn't pick it up until later in the year. This was a Benchmade, and I don't have the 940 anymore, but this was a Benchmade that I picked up. It's added to my collection. It will be in my collection. I really like this knife. The next knife, and I'm not going in chronological order necessarily, but I do believe that this one would be the next one outside of the 2 knives, the 2 brands that I wanted to pick up. My grandmother passed back in March, and right around that time, these knives, the 48 Improved Trappers, came out, and this was a very small SFO run, and I actually picked this knife up while my grandmother was in the hospital dying. So this knife is a little bit sentimental to me. It's just smooth ivory, smooth white bone, bar shield, and then there's a bolster on either end, but it has the full width clip blade, and this was an SFO for Lone Star. I believe you can see that. There you go, Lone Star. So that's another standout for me. Now, something that I recently picked up, and you guys have already seen this a good bit. No, I will say there are going to be some knives that you don't see in here that I'm sure people are going to be like, how did he not include those knives? Those knives didn't stand out enough to me to want to put into the video. I didn't want to make a 20-minute long video. And on top of that, when I looked and I had pulled my selections and I saw they had 5 of each, I thought that was good enough. So enough babbling. This is a large Chris Reeve Sabenza in Singo. In the past, I must have owned probably, man, I don't know, maybe 10 or 12 Sabenzas, smalls, larges, in Singos, regulars, you name it. I've owned different combinations. When I picked this knife up, this let me know that this is another model that I need, another brand and make of knife, being the Sabenza 21, that I need to keep in my collection, because this knife is just that good. It's so simple and plain and boring, but this knife here really, it really holds a special place in my rotation of knives. Next up, we'll go back to a traditional, and a few of these, there's one make of knife, but there are 2 of the actual knives. This would be one of those. I had the Great Eastern Cutlery 38 Grinling Whittler in Chechen Rosewood, and for whatever stupid reason, I decided to sell that knife. Don't know, regret it. But anyway, I happened to see this knife up for sale, and it is a user. You can see there's a scratch up here. It's been sharpened. The back has some rub marks. I paid full market value for this knife. I mean, I didn't get any breaks on this knife, but I'm just glad that I got it, because if you know anything about the Grindling Whittler, you know that there were a decent number of them made, but they rarely pop up, and when they do pop up, they go quickly. So after a few months of owning this one happened to pop up on Instagram. So I ended up picking up 2 of these Grindling Whittlers in 1 year. So I was able to replace the knife that I sold twice over. Back to traditionals, back to moderns. I had an SMF in a full flat ground Tonto that I really regretted not owning anymore. Now, that knife I bought from a good friend of mine, and we made an agreement that if he wanted it back, I would sell it back to him. He wanted it back, I did, I sold it back to him. So this knife here is just an old school Strider. You don't see too many of these anymore. Just a user of a knife. I mean, look at this, the centering isn't even good, but hey, it's a beater. I like it. It works well. Back to traditionals. The next knife up. Also, you'll notice a little bit of a common theme. I had one of these, and I don't know if you want to call it blue or green bone, but it was that weird color that you see these Burnside Jets come in sometimes. I couldn't stand the color, like the knife. So I ended up selling that knife some time ago, maybe even 2 years ago. And I had always wanted one of these knives. So I ended up trading on Instagram a guy for this knife. It's a user. You can see it even there's even a chip in the bone here. But this is just a great knife. The dog leg pattern feels great in this grip. It feels great in this grip. It's just a great knife with a great snap. And I don't know if you guys are aware, but this one has the half stop, which I believe is the 55 pattern. GEC is actually going to do a small filler run of 56s. So if you keep your eyes open, you might be able to stumble across one of these GEC branded knives. I don't know if Northwoods is going to do another run. Back to moderns. I also wanted a dual gunner grip SMF very badly. This was the year that everybody was talking about, you know, Strider closing down, this, that, and the other. They're still open. I bought this knife this year. They've been releasing knives pretty consistently throughout the year. So please don't believe that misinformation. Strider is still alive and well. If you want to find out more information, I have a video titled that on my page. Go back and watch it. So anyway, I couldn't find the Strider dual gunner grip because the market was so crazy with people spreading this misinformation about Strider being closed. But Mick was still putting out some knives from his custom shop, production knives from his custom shop, and I was able to get what they call the hybrid. So it has green gunner grip G10, but it has a Lego flamed lock side. So I was able to kind of sort of get my knife, not really, but this was the best I could do. And this knife has been great. I enjoy it. And one day I hope to pick up the dual gunner grip. I see they're offering that again. So looking to pick one of those up. Back to traditionals. This is a pattern. I had a 92, but it wasn't a Eureka Jack. I believe it was a Talon. This came up. I happened to wake up early to go to work one day, and I couldn't believe that it was still sitting on Blade Forums at the price it was. This knife is just, I mean, look at the back spring on this knife. And this is not a custom knife. This is just old school GEC quality right here. I mean, just flawless work. Blade centered. I mean, just flawless work. And the snap on these little knives. I mean, can you hear that? This is just some of GEC's top quality work. And again, this one here with this sway back design, it just feels great in hand this way. It feels great in hand this way. This is just a great knife. And I'm so happy to have gotten it and to not have to really overpay for it. Back to modern. So another knife that I had and I sold, and again, I had a mini A100 probably three years ago or so, and the centering was awful, and it just, you know, all the stuff that you hear about Emerson and their fit and finish, and I couldn't deal with it, so I stupidly sold the knife, and that was before these were discontinued, so I just thought, oh, I'll pick another one up. Well, then I heard that they were coming out with the versions with the standoffs, so I said, well, I'll wait for a version with the standoffs. Well, shortly after that, if you keep up with Emerson, you know, the Mini A100 was discontinued. So I was, you know, looking around on the USN website, USN Classifieds one night, and I happened to stumble across this one. I got it for a decent price. Wasn't crazy that it had the serrated edge, partial serrated edge, but again, this is not a knife that comes up every single day. So I picked it up, and literally, guys, it came in the mail one day, and then like the very next day, Emerson did a drop of Mini A100s. So I ended up with another one. This one here is exactly what I wanted. It has the standoffs. It has the satin blade that does not have the serrations. Just a great all-around little user knife, just dependable. And I even added the upgraded peat gray Zerk Monster thumb disc. So again, I not only was able to replace the knife that I sold, but I was able to replace it twice. Very happy about that. Back to traditionals. I'm gonna hold this one up here. Usually every year there's a drop of 77s. This year we didn't get a drop of 77s, but we did get a drop of 78s. I'm due at least one, but it should be two more of these knives, not in the same covers, not necessarily a two blade pattern, but this knife here is just really a nice knife. Great character in the bone, great centering, just very, very good overall quality. And the other thing I like is that both of the nail nicks are on the same side, so you access both blades on the same side. And these blades have a little bit of snap. As I mentioned in my first video on this knife, they don't necessarily have as much snap as I would prefer, but still very nice, very snappy, medium-sized knife that you can carry. Very happy with this knife here. And I don't know how I got out of order, but this knife here is going to be the last one that I mentioned. And there were a lot of 25s that came out this year, but this one would have to be my favorite that was released this year. And it is Mike Latham's SFO and that burlap micarta with that matte finish, with the bolster with the matte finish. And this is just a great little watch pocket Barlow. And you can see, I know, like I said, I don't cut a lot of things at patina knives, but you can see these are knives that I have had in my pocket and I do use. So this would be the last knife of 2017 out of these knives that I bought that stand out to me. So please comment below, tell me what you think. I appreciate the idea from the person in the comments. Again, this was not my idea, but I hope that you all enjoyed the idea. I hope that you saw some knives here that maybe you yourself have wanted and you yourself can enjoy. But I'm just appreciative to have seen another year of knife buying and knife using. And I appreciate all of the support, and I appreciate you guys watching. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I hope to catch you in the next video. Have a great day.